In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can use content-aware fill to move an object while automatically filling in the area that was left behind. And then we'll see how to use content-aware scale to resize an image to a different aspect ratio without distorting important areas of the photo. So first I want to remove these two birds here. I've got the lasso tool selected, so I'll just select them. And then I'll switch to the patch tool. Position my cursor inside of the marching ants and then just drag it over to the right in order to tell Photoshop to fill that area with the other area of the sky. Excellent, it's done a great job, so I'll use Command D in order to deselect. Now, I want to move this bird over into this empty area, and I can use any of the selection tools in order to select it. So I'll just drag a selection around that, and then I'll switch to the Content Aware Move tool. Position my cursor inside a marching ants and drag it over. When I release the cursor, Photoshop gives me the opportunity to transform this. I can make the bird larger or smaller if I want to. In this case, I'll just tap Enter or Return to apply that transformation, but it can be very handy if you're trying to move something in perspective. Now, you may have noticed as soon as I applied that, Photoshop automatically filled in the area where the bird originally was. I'm going to zoom in using Command plus twice, and then I'm just going to hide the edges of my selection using Command H on Mac or Control H on Windows. That just hides the selection though. The selection's still floating. It has not been merged with the background layer. And I want to point out that you can change both the structure and the color after the fact. So I'm going to move the structure down to 1 and the color down to 1 as well. So with the structure down to 1, basically we're telling Photoshop that it can alter the content within that selection. When I move the structure up to 10, then I'm telling it that it cannot move the content. So it will try to copy the original information as best as possible while still blending. I think in a case like this, I'm going to move the structure to about 3 or 4. If I set the color to 0, then we can see that Photoshop had a harder time blending the edges of the selection, whereas if I move the color all the way up to 10, Photoshop does a much better job in blending those colors, and now we've got a seamless match. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next image here. And here I want to use Content Aware Scale because I want to change the aspect ratio of this image from 2 to 3 to 1 to 1. And in fact, I've already created a guide in here to help us. So I'll use View and then Show and then Guides. Now, in order to transform this using Content Aware Scale, I need to convert the background into a layer. So I'll click on the lock icon. Then I'll choose Edit, Content Aware Scale. I'll make sure that it is unlocked so that it doesn't try to constrain the proportions, and I'll start moving the right side in towards that guide. Now, as I drag, Photoshop is trying to scale down those areas that have lower frequencies or fewer details like the clouds in the background area or the grass in the foreground area, and it's trying to leave areas like the roof and the building alone that have higher frequencies. If we want to see what would happen if we just free transform this, I can take the amount slider down to 0, and you can see that the house would really become squished and distorted. So with Content Aware Scale, we're able to keep the proportions of the house while scaling down the less important information in the image. Now, if there's something in your image that you absolutely want to protect, we can actually save a selection and then load it. So I'll cancel out of here and then select the lasso tool, drag a loose selection around the house, and choose the Select menu, Save Selection, and I'll save this as the house to a new channel. Then we can deselect this and return to Edit, Content Aware Scale. I'll start scaling again from the right-hand side, But this time, I'm going to tell it to protect that saved selection of the house. I'll even scale this more just so you can see how far we can take this before Photoshop actually has to scale the house. Now, obviously, the clouds are looking a little weird here, so I'll scale it back out. We can also scale in the other direction, so don't just think we can squish things left to right. We can also scale things vertically. All right, I'll click the check mark in order to apply that content-aware scale. And as you can see, Photoshop has several different tools, all using the content-aware technology that can help us to get rid of distracting elements as well as make creative crops to our photographs.